David Morgan with you from British Columbia, Vancouver, in the offices of Investmentpitch. Ralph Shearing, Telson Mining. It's mining now.
Yes.
One time it was a resource company looking for something. Now you have two mines. So bring us up to speed. What's happened in the last 2 years?
Well, we've had a really fun and a growth period over the last couple of years. I met a Mexican mining team in Mexico, and I'd been concentrating in Mexico for many years on one particular project that was just a fantastic project. I recognized it as a geologist and developed it when I could, when there was money available to explore. And in 2015, when the industry was really in bad shape, we were just about ready to go under. I was at my wit's end trying to figure out how to stay alive. And I was introduced to Jose Antonio Berlanga, our current CEO. And we did a deal together. They came in and invested in the company, pulled us up out of the dying throes of dying, and saved our company, and came in, took over controlling interest in the shares and management, and they have been fantastic. They've been able to push the projects ahead really rapidly in Mexico. So our flagship project is called Taboeto. It's a epithermal system. We developed a resource and a reserve on that project, and it's now in pre-production. We're toll milling, and at the same time we're building a mine. We're building a 1,000-ton-a-day mine to start production there. And while we were doing all that with Antonio and his crew, we came across the Campo Morado mine, which was a mine in production, all the infrastructure, fully equipped mine that was in production but put on care and maintenance back in 2014. It had been purchased by Nearstar, which is a zinc Belgian company, smelting company, and they paid a friendly takeover of Farallon Resources, $410 million for that asset. Put more money in to expand the mine and develop it, and they produced for about 4 years. And then the zinc price went to the floor, and they couldn't make a go of it. Had some difficulties with the local people, and they shut down the mine in the beginning of 2014. Put it on care and maintenance, and we negotiated a purchase price with them in June of last year for $17 million. The Mexican team went in, cleaned up the mill, started the mill back in production within 4 months. We've been producing there since October of last year, and we started out at 1,400 tons a day. We're now at just around 2,000 tons a day, and we've had great success. In our first quarter of this year, we sold concentrate from both projects for about $10.5 million total, the bulk of that coming from Campo Morado. Because it's a higher production rate, obviously. And then in April, we've done even better. Campo Morado's produced enough concentrate for about $5 million of sales. So we're going great guns. We intend to declare commercial production anytime now, as soon as we make the decision. And we are going to ramp up production at Campo Morado to around 2,500 tons per day, probably by the third quarter of this year. It's a great story. It's primarily a zinc mine. It's got good precious metal values, but the precious metals are refractory. They're difficult to get in the initial stages of the milling process. However, we hope to increase the recovery of the precious metals through some technology that we're looking at that's owned by Glencore Technologies. It looks really promising. No promises, but we think we can get there by early next year, have much better precious metal recoveries as well.
Ralph, I like the story. I like zinc too, by the way. We were one of the first to put out a white paper on zinc because all these big mines were coming to an end. Mm-hmm. We had our little favorite that's doubled, but you have good margins on this. I know you don't know the all-in sustaining costs yet exactly, but I would say, I'll speak for you, maybe you can address it further, that you have, we like wide margins. Let's face it, the mining business is a tough one, as are most businesses. And no matter what you produce, it's the amount of margin that you have that is the amount of cash flow that you get to share with your shareholders. So looking at the metrics of Campo Morado, I'm pretty impressed. There aren't too many zinc situations I know of that have that kind of grade. Do you want to comment further?
Well, Campo Morado is a VMS deposit. It's polymetallic for one thing, but the highest paying commodity is zinc at this point in time. What we've done on Campo Morado, which is quite a bit different than the former operators, is we've reduced costs considerably, more than half. The former operator was operating with about 700 people on site. We have now 300 people. We'll max out at maybe 340, 350 people at full capacity. We've taken the costs down from about $90 per ton for mining, milling, and G&A. We're about $50 per ton right now, and we're still in development. We're developing the ore bodies to change the mining method to sub-level caving. It was room and pillar before. So it was a lot of development work we were doing in order to get the mine ready to change over to the bulk mining method. And so that's higher costs, and we're not able to select the actual material we want to put through the mill when we're in development because we're developing the whole ore body at once.
Sure.
So we expect to be able to increase recoveries, grades of concentrates, etc. once we're mining on a bulk basis. So we expect further cost reductions. And as far as the profit margins on Campo Morado, to put it for example, I mean, our estimates, and this is again, caution everybody, these are just our estimates, they're not 43101, but we expect over $100 million cash flow from both of our projects next year, and about 50 of that will probably be EBITDA.
Okay.
So we should be a real cash cow as this thing comes into full scale.
Well, great. Well, I'm going to pause and talk about the investor perspective, then I want to visit the gold mine. So what's your shares outstanding, and what's the institutional holdings? What's the
We have
management
about
holdings?
130 million shares outstanding right now. We have no institutions. We have not been marketing, and we're just getting ready to start marketing. So we expect to get a fairly good institutional following once we start releasing numbers on a commercial production basis. Because right now we're not in commercial production, so all of our revenue, or we're not allowed to call it revenue, it's called cash sales, it's all written off against expenses.
Okay.
So we're not allowed to declare revenue until we declare commercial production.
Sure.
So that's imminent. And once that happens, then we're going to see revenue being reported, and people will start to see how much money these projects will make.
Well, you're right at the sweet spot in the exploration and production schematic. I think Pierre Lassonde was the one that came out with that graph. And I love it because you're basically investing at the right time. The old adage, timing is everything. Our market, generally speaking, has been in the lulls or doldrums for quite some time. But, you have to look at each situation individually, and that's why, it's so much of a thrill for me to do Telson mining. So let's flip back to the gold story. Let's talk about the gold mine.
Okay, so Tabahueto, this is my life, Tabahueto. 20 years I've been trying to get this project to where it is now. It's a beautiful project. It's a very large epithermal system. I liken it to the San Dimas mining district, but unexplored. We've only really drilled along one of the structures, and that's where we've developed our resources and reserves. They're open to depth, they're open along strike on the one structure, and we have multiple structures. There's at least 10 structures we know of in the project, and there's going to be countless more that are going to be found as we continue on. So I firmly believe Tabahueto will grow into a multi-million ounce gold deposit, and it is polymetallic, by the way. It's a polymetallic epithermal system, but 60% of the value is in the gold and the rest is in the base metals and silver at this point in time.
Sure.
Now that could change as you explore and find different zones, but we're very, very confident that we can grow that mine from its initial startup. We're expecting to have the mill built at the end of 2018 at around 1,000 tons per day, and with exploration success, both along the existing structures and the other structures, we expect to make that a 2,000, maybe a 3,000 ton a day mill over the coming years. So we have a 5-year plan, at both projects, to expand the size of them. We think we can grow Campo Morado to 5,000 tons a day. Fairly aggressive, but if we can solve the mystery of the refractory gold and get better precious metal recoveries, then that turns that whole project right around. And then at Tabahueto, it's simply a matter of exploring, developing more resources and reserves as we go forward. Plus, our Mexican management team, led by Jose Antonio Berlanga, is extremely aggressive, and he's a really smart, well-connected guy in Mexico. He's visited multiple projects throughout Mexico in his former role with Fideicomiso Fomento Minero, which is a government trust that loaned money to small-scale miners. And Antonio vetted hundreds of projects through Mexico in that tenure. So we've got a leader that's capable, the mining engineer metallurgist, and is able to drive the project forward. He's a great following in Mexico, and he's starting to establish the following in the capital markets here in Canada as well.
Well, at the risk of repeating myself again, my favorite is when you have a producer with a lot of exploration potential, which obviously this one does. And that's a safe bet. As an investor mentality, it's like low risk, high reward. So you've already got sort of a cash flow situation guaranteed with, as you said, maybe going from 1,000 to 5,000 tons per day would be quite a feat, and it looks like it could be achievable.
Absolutely, and both projects have excellent exploration potential. So we're very confident on those, but there will be more acquisitions made in the future as well.
We're talking about the shares and share structure. I forgot to ask what the turnover is right now. Are you seeing doldrums in the market as well?
Yeah, our volumes are, they're erratic. Lately, they've increased. We're probably, I would say, maybe 20, 30,000 shares a day. But there's days where there's none, and there's days where there's 70. So the capital markets or the investing public right now is not paying attention to explorers, for one, and even miners. Even the miners are having a hard time. Most of the valuations are way down. So, that has to change at some point in the future. And I would predict near future, because it's been too long of a downturn in the industry. And metal is required, so and no one's finding it anymore.
That's a fact.
So that's the exploration side of things is really tough. No one's exploring. So where's all this metal going to come from?
What's the treasury look like? You're going to have to.
Treasury's great. We have about $7-8 million in the kitty, and we're generating cash.
Yeah.
So we're doing good.
Okay, excellent. So I just want to be sure get that on. On
we are going to do a raise. We've actually in the process of doing a raise. We have a payment that we have to make to Nearstar for the final acquisition. So we're working now on a raise. We'll probably raise up to $20 million Canadian. Is our target price. So we don't need it all, but it'd be nice to have a bit more so we can start the exploration.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think we covered it. It's just a great story. Like I said, and no BS. It's the type I like. I like them when they're mining and they've got potential to increase.
Yeah, it's really interesting for me because I'm an explorationist, and now I've turned into a mining guy. I'm learning lots, but thank God I've got my Mexican mining team behind us, because they're first-class smart guys.
Great. Is there anything we haven't talked about that our viewers should know?
I think we've covered a lot of it. I would like to re-highlight the Mexican mining guys. With their team, they're just so focused and huge experience in developing and putting projects into production. And not only that, going in and cleaning up a project that may not have been operated properly, or there's some inefficiencies, and Antonio can recognize those really simply and turn that project around. And Campo Morado is a perfect example of that. We've really turned that thing around in a record time. So that, that's really about all I could think of at the moment. I think we did cover a lot of.
Good. Well, let's get the website out there, phone numbers, contact, email, whatever.
Sure. Okay. It's the Telson Mining Corporation, TSN.V on the Venture Exchange. Our website is just www.telsonmining.com. Telephone number 604-684-8071.
Great. Okay. Ralph, a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thanks, Steve.